3 months had passed since the aliens began their protection of Earth's children, and the results were not what anyone had expected. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her office looking at data that worried her more each day. Children around the world were showing signs of depression, anxiety, and developmental problems that had never been seen before. Her latest study showed that human children needed challenge and mild risk to develop properly. Without the ability to test themselves against difficulties, children were losing their sense of confidence and their willingness to try new things. The alien safety measures that were meant to help were actually harming the very children they were designed to protect. Jake Morrison had just turned 9 years old, but he felt much older after 3 months of living under alien protection. The blue glow that surrounded his house and school made him feel like he was living in a prison made of light. He missed the feeling of riding his bike fast down a hill or climbing high enough in a tree to see over the rooftops. Jake was not alone in his feelings. Children all over the world were finding creative ways to try to get around the alien safety systems. They could not ride bicycles, but they could run in zigzag patterns that felt almost like racing. They could not climb trees, but they could stack books to make towers they could climb on. The alien computers that controlled the protection systems could not understand why children kept trying to do dangerous things when they were being kept perfectly safe. The Kepler programmers kept adding new rules to stop each creative attempt at risk-taking, but human children always found new ways to challenge themselves. Commander Zara spent her days watching reports from Earth and feeling more confused about her own species' mission. The protected human children did not seem happy or grateful like Kepler children would have been. Instead, they seemed sad and restless, as if something important was missing from their lives. Zara began studying the behavior of human children before the protection began and comparing it to their behavior now. What she found surprised her. Before the aliens arrived, human children had been creative, active, and full of energy. Now they sat quietly and showed little interest in learning or exploring. On Kepler 7, similar changes were happening, but in the opposite direction. Young Kepler beings who heard stories about human children began asking questions that had never been asked before. They wanted to know what playing felt like and why human children seemed so interested in activities that involved risk. Betty Morrison was Jake's grandmother and a retired school teacher who had worked with children for over 40 years. She watched her grandson's spirit slowly disappear under the alien protection and decided that someone needed to speak up for human children everywhere. Betty called the local television station and asked to be interviewed about the alien situation. She was just an old teacher, but she knew more about how children learned and grew than most of the experts who appeared on news shows every day. The interview was broadcast live around the world, and millions of people watched as Betty asked a simple question that no one had thought to ask before. She looked directly into the camera and said that if children never fell down, they would never learn how to get back up again. Her words struck a chord with parents everywhere who had been trying to explain to the aliens why their children needed some freedom to make mistakes and learn from them. Betty's question became a rallying cry for humans who wanted their children to have the chance to develop resilience and strength through facing appropriate challenges. Dr. Alex Bennett had been working with other scientists to understand alien technology better. His team discovered something important about the Kepler species and their home planet. The aliens came from a world that had been made completely safe thousands of years ago, and their children never experienced any challenges or difficulties. This discovery helped explain why the Kepler people could not understand human child development. Their own species had evolved to eliminate all risk from childhood, but in doing so, they had also eliminated many of the experiences that helped young beings become strong and capable adults. Alex published his research showing that the Kepler species had lost many abilities over the centuries as their world became safer. They were less creative, less adaptable, and less able to handle unexpected problems than their ancestors had been. By protecting their children from everything, they had weakened their entire species. President Helen Davis used this research to try again to communicate with the alien leaders. She explained that human children were different from Kepler children and needed different kinds of care. She proposed that humans and aliens work together to find better ways to keep children safe while still allowing them to learn and grow. The Kepler High Council reviewed the human research with great interest. For the first time, they began to consider that their protection methods might not work the same way for all species. But they were still not convinced that allowing children to face any danger could ever be the right choice. Jake Morrison became the unofficial leader of what news reporters called the Kid Resistance. Children around the world looked to him as someone who understood what they were going through. Jake organized peaceful protests where children sat quietly in parks holding signs asking for the freedom to play and explore. The protests were unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. Kepler children never questioned adult decisions or asked for changes to safety rules. The sight of human children peacefully standing up for their rights amazed and confused the alien observers. Captain Maria Santos had given up trying to fight the aliens with weapons and instead began working on a different kind of resistance. Her team helped human children find safe ways to challenge themselves within the alien restrictions. They created underground play networks where kids could experience controlled adventures. Dr. Carter was invited to speak at a global conference about child development that was broadcast to both human and alien audiences. She explained how human children learned by testing their abilities against appropriate challenges, and how removing all risk actually prevented healthy development. The aliens listened to her presentation with great attention because it described concepts that were completely foreign to their experience. The idea that difficulty and challenge could be good for children was something that no Kepler being had ever considered. Young Kepler beings who were listening to the broadcast began asking their parents why human children seemed so much more interesting and capable than they were. For the first time in centuries, Kepler youth began to question the wisdom of complete safety and protection. Commander Zara made a decision that went against everything she had been taught. She began conducting secret experiments where Kepler children were allowed to try simple challenges, like walking on uneven ground or reaching for objects that were slightly out of their comfort zone. The results amazed her. Kepler children who experienced mild challenges became more alert, more curious, and more engaged with the world around them. They began showing creativity and problem-solving abilities that had been dormant for generations. Jake Morrison celebrated his 9th birthday by making a speech that was broadcast around the world. He thanked the aliens for wanting to keep children safe, but asked them to understand that being safe and being alive were two different things. He said that children needed to feel proud of themselves for overcoming challenges and that being protected from everything made them feel weak and sad. His birthday speech reached millions of people, including alien leaders who were beginning to realize that their mission to Earth might need to change. The question was whether the Kepler Collective could overcome thousands of years of programming that told them children must be protected from all possible harm. The answer would come from an unexpected source as both human and alien children began to show their species what they could accomplish when they were allowed to face the world with courage instead of fear. President Helen Davis was in the middle of discussing budget matters when every screen in the White House went bright blue. She looked around the room at her advisors who were all staring at their phones, tablets, and computers with shocked expressions. The same blue light was coming from every electronic device in the room. Then words began to appear on all the screens at the same time. The message was written in perfect English, and Helen felt her heart skip a beat as she read it. The beings calling themselves the Kepler Collective were announcing that they had come to Earth to protect human children from what they called inadequate adult supervision. General Mike Torres burst into the room without knocking and told the president that the same message was appearing on every screen in every country around the world. Military bases were reporting that their weapons systems had been shut down by some kind of invisible force. The general's face was red with anger as he demanded permission to fight back against the aliens. Helen tried to call the leaders of other countries, but found that all communication satellites had been taken over by the aliens. Instead of hearing foreign presidents and prime ministers, she heard calm alien voices explaining their peaceful mission to protect Earth's children. Dr. Lisa Carter was in her office at the Children's Hospital when the walls began to shimmer with the same blue light that had appeared on the screens. She stood up from her desk and watched in amazement as a figure began to form in the empty space near her bookshelf. The figure looked almost human, but its skin had a blue tint, and its eyes were much larger than normal. It wore a white robe that seemed to glow with its own light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music, but the words were in perfect English. The alien introduced itself as Healer Vex and explained that it had been chosen to speak with Dr. Carter because she worked with human children. Vex told her about the observations the Kepler people had made and why they felt they needed to take action to protect young humans. Lisa listened with growing disbelief as Vex described human child rearing as primitive and dangerous. The alien showed her recordings of children playing on monkey bars, climbing trees, and riding bicycles without what the aliens considered proper safety equipment. Vex could not understand why human adults allowed such risky behavior. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison had become famous overnight when reporters discovered that he was the child whose accident had triggered the alien intervention. Camera crews surrounded his house and reporters shouted questions at him as he tried to walk to school. Jake did not understand why everyone was so interested in him. All he had done was fall into a hole and somehow not get hurt. When a reporter asked him what he thought about the aliens protecting children, Jake gave an answer that would be repeated on news shows around the world. The 8-year-old boy looked straight into the camera and asked why the grown-ups from space did not want kids to have any fun anymore. His innocent question captured exactly what millions of children around the world were starting to feel as the alien protection systems began to change their daily lives. The changes started small but grew bigger each day. Bicycles simply stopped working when children tried to ride them. The aliens had decided that bicycles were too dangerous because children could fall and get hurt. Playground equipment was modified overnight so that swings only moved a few inches and slides became completely flat. Sports fields around the world were covered with soft padding that made it impossible to run properly. Soccer balls became so soft they would barely bounce. Baseball bats turned into foam toys that could not hit anything with any force. The aliens were systematically removing every activity they considered dangerous for children. Parents began to panic as they watched their children become listless and bored. Kids who had been active and happy were now sitting around with nothing to do because all their favorite activities had been made impossible by alien safety measures. Captain Maria Santos led a secret military unit that was trying to find a way to fight back against the alien technology. Her team had discovered that conventional weapons were completely useless against the alien shields. Nuclear missiles could not even launch from their bases. But Maria noticed something strange about the alien defenses. They would stop any weapon, but they allowed food, water, and medical supplies to pass through without any problems. The aliens were not trying to conquer Earth in the traditional sense. They were trying to childproof the entire planet. Commander Zara watched the human reactions from her ship and began to feel confused about the mission. She had expected human adults to be grateful that their children were now completely safe from harm. Instead, the humans seemed angry and upset about the protection their children were receiving. The Kepler databases contained detailed information about thousands of different species across the galaxy, but humans were proving to be unlike anything they had studied before. Most intelligent species were grateful when the Kepler Collective helped protect their young ones. Dr. Alex Bennett finally understood what his instruments had been detecting for months. The gravity readings were caused by alien ships using advanced technology to save human children from accidents. His data showed that the aliens had been preventing injuries and deaths for months before they revealed themselves. Alex published his findings online and showed that alien intervention had already saved thousands of human children from serious harm. But instead of being thankful, most parents were worried about what this constant protection was doing to their kids. Schools around the world reported that children were becoming depressed and anxious. Without the ability to take normal childhood risks, many kids were losing their sense of confidence and adventure. Teachers noticed that students were less creative and less willing to try new things. Dr. Carter tried to explain to Healer Vex that children needed some risk and challenge to develop properly. She showed the alien research about how overprotected children often grew up to be fearful and unable to handle normal life problems. But Vex could not understand this concept. On Kepler 7, children were kept completely safe until they became adults, and then they lived completely safe lives forever. The idea that danger could be good for development made no sense to the alien mind. Jake Morrison found himself at the center of protests as parents demanded that the aliens stop their overprotection. Children carried signs asking to be allowed to play normally again, but the alien response was to increase their safety measures even more. The Kepler Collective interpreted the protests as proof that human adults could not be trusted to make good decisions about child safety. If humans were upset about their children being protected, then clearly humans were even worse parents than the aliens had first thought. President Helen Davis tried to negotiate with the aliens but found that they would not discuss any changes to their protection policies. The Kepler representatives insisted that they were saving human children from their own parents and that the protest only proved how much help humans needed. The situation was getting worse every day as more and more human activities were banned by alien safety protocols. Swimming was forbidden because children might drown. Art classes were stopped because scissors and paint were considered dangerous. Even running was limited because children might trip and fall. Jake looked out his bedroom window at the blue glow that now surrounded his house and every other place where children lived. He missed riding his bike and climbing trees and all the other things that had made him feel brave and strong. The boy who had started it all by falling into a construction pit now wondered if being completely safe was really better than being free to explore and take chances. The aliens thought. They were helping, but they were slowly destroying the very thing that made human childhood special, the freedom to learn and grow through experience, both good and bad. Commander Zara stood before the High Council of Kepler-7, 3 days after the incident with the human child. The great crystal chamber where the leaders met was filled with blue light and the sound of worried voices. She had never seen the council so upset about anything before. Fleet Admiral Neck sat on the highest crystal throne looking down at Zara with his large dark eyes. He had lived for over 300 years and had seen many things, but nothing like this report from Earth. The other council members whispered to each other in their musical language as they read about what humans did to their children. Zara had sent not just a report about Jake Morrison, but also data about hundreds of other human children her team had been watching. The information painted a picture that horrified the Kepler leaders. Human children rode bicycles without protection for their heads. They climbed trees that were tall enough to cause serious injury if they fell. They played games where they could run into each other and get hurt. Dr. Alex Bennett sat in his laboratory on Earth, looking at computer screens full of data he could not explain. For the past 6 months, his instruments had been detecting strange gravity readings from all over the planet. The readings lasted only a few seconds each time, but they were unlike anything known to human science. Alex had been a scientist for 20 years, and he knew that gravity did not just change by itself. Something was causing these readings, but he had no idea what it could be. The patterns showed that most of the strange gravity events happened near schools' playgrounds and places where children spent time. On Kepler-7, the debate in the council chamber grew more intense. Council member Vex spoke about the biological programming that made their species protect young ones above all else. She explained that Kepler adults could not sleep or eat properly when they knew children were in danger anywhere in the universe. The Kepler people had evolved this way because their planet had once been very dangerous. Long ago, their children faced many threats from wild animals and natural disasters. Over thousands of years, their species developed an overwhelming need to keep all young ones completely safe. Now their planet had no dangers left, but the protective instinct remained stronger than ever. Council member Dex argued that humans were a different species, and maybe they raised their children differently for good reasons. He suggested that the Kepler people should study humans more before taking any action, but his voice was drowned out by others who demanded immediate action to protect Earth's children. Fleet Admiral Nex had made his decision before the debate even started. He had watched video recordings of human children doing things that would be crimes on Kepler-7. He saw them riding skateboards at high speed with no protection. He watched them jump from high places into water without checking if it was safe first. Worst of all, he saw human adults watching these activities and doing nothing to stop them. Ryan Morrison noticed that his son Jake had been quiet ever since the incident at the construction site. The boy usually talked constantly about his adventures, but now he seemed worried about something. Ryan asked Jake what was bothering him, but the boy just said he had strange dreams about blue people watching him. Dr. Lisa Carter continued her work at the Children's Hospital, but she could not stop thinking about Jake's miraculous survival. She had seen many accidents involving children, and she knew that falls like his usually resulted in broken bones or worse injuries. Something about that day did not make sense to her scientific mind. Lisa began collecting data about child accidents in their city over the past few months. What she found was very strange. The number of serious injuries to children had dropped by almost half during the time period when Alex Bennett had been recording his mysterious gravity readings on Kepler-7. The Council reached their final decision after 3 days of debate. They would not conquer Earth like ancient warrior species might have done. Instead, they would take what they called protective custody of the planet. Their goal would be to keep human children safe from their own parents, who clearly did not understand proper childcare. Fleet Admiral Nex explained the plan to his military commanders. They would surround Earth with their most advanced ships and use their technology to prevent any harm from coming to human children. They would not hurt any humans, but they would take control of the planet until the adults learned how to properly protect their young ones. The Kepler military began preparing for what they called Operation Safe Harbor. Hundreds of ships were loaded with protective equipment and safety devices. Teams of experts studied human child behavior and made plans for how to keep every boy and girl on Earth completely safe from all possible dangers. Commander Zara felt uneasy about the mission, even though she had written the report that started it. She kept thinking about the human boy Jake and how he had seemed happy and excited even after his dangerous adventure. Kepler children never showed such emotions because they never faced any challenges or risks. Dr. Bennett's instruments detected a massive change in the space around Earth. Whatever had been causing the small gravity readings was now approaching the planet in huge numbers. He tried to warn the government, but no one believed his reports about invisible objects in space. The Kepler fleet took positions around Earth in perfect formation. Their ships were invisible to human technology, but their sensors could detect every human child on the planet. The aliens were amazed and horrified to discover that there were over 1 billion human children living in what they considered constant deadly danger. President Helen Davis was meeting with her advisors about trade agreements when every computer screen, television, and phone on Earth suddenly displayed the same message. The text appeared in every human language at the same time, creating panic in government buildings around the world. The message was simple, but it changed everything. It said that beings from another world had come to Earth not as enemies, but as protectors of human children. The aliens explained that they had been watching and were shocked by how badly human adults took care of their young ones. General Mike Torres immediately declared a national emergency and put all military forces on high alert. He assumed this was the beginning of an invasion and ordered his commanders to prepare for war. But when he tried to launch missiles at the alien ships, his weapons would not work. The Kepler ships had created an invisible shield around the entire planet. The shield would stop any weapons from being fired, but it would allow food, air, and water to pass through freely. The aliens did not want to hurt humans, they just wanted to protect human children from their own parents. Jake Morrison was playing in his backyard when the sky above his house began to shimmer like water. A gentle blue light surrounded the swing set and sandbox, making them glow softly. Jake was not afraid because the light felt warm and safe, like being hugged by someone who cared about him very much. All across Earth, similar lights began appearing around schools, playgrounds, and anywhere else that children spent time. The aliens were beginning their mission to make the planet safe for young humans. They did not know that their idea of safety was about to create the biggest crisis in human history. Dr. Carter watched the news reports with growing concern as parents around the world discovered that their children were now surrounded by alien protection fields. The fields would not let children get hurt, but they also would not let them do many of the things that children needed to do to grow and learn properly. The Kepler Collective had made their choice and there was no going back. They would save human children even if the human adults did not want to be saved. Jake Morrison pedaled his red bicycle down the dusty road that led to the old construction site. The 8-year-old boy loved exploring places where adults told him not to go. His mother always said he was too curious for his own good. Today was no different as he spotted the gap in the chain link fence that surrounded the big hole in the ground where workers were building new apartments. The fence was supposed to keep people out, but Jake was small enough to squeeze through the opening. He left his bike against a tree and crawled through the gap. The construction site was quiet because it was Saturday and no workers were there. Jake could see the big machines sitting still like sleeping metal dinosaurs. What Jake did not know was that 3 strange beings were watching him from a place he could not see. They looked like humans, but their skin had a blue tint and their eyes were much larger. These beings came from a planet called Kepler-7, which was very far from Earth. They had been studying humans for many months now, Commander. Zara stood with her two helpers on their invisible ship that floated above the construction site. She had been watching human children for weeks and could not understand why their parents let them do such dangerous things. On her planet, children were protected from everything that could hurt them. Even a small scratch was considered a terrible thing. Jake walked to the edge of the big pit and looked down. The hole was very deep and had steep sides made of dirt and rocks. At the bottom he could see pipes and concrete blocks. He thought it looked like a good place to explore, but he needed to find a way down that was safe. The boy found a pile of wooden boards near the edge. He thought he could use them to make steps down into the pit. He did not see that the boards were old and some of them were cracked. Jake picked up the first board and put it against the wall of the pit. Then he stepped on it to test if it would hold his weight. Commander Zara watched with growing worry as the human child did something that would never be allowed on her planet. Her helpers were also concerned. In their culture, any adult who let a child take such risks would be punished severely. They could not understand why no human adults were watching this boy. Jake stepped onto the board and it seemed strong enough to hold him. He put another board lower down and stepped onto that one too. He was making his own stairway down into the pit. The boy felt proud of his clever idea and did not think about what could go wrong. The aliens in the ship above could see things that Jake could not. Their advanced sensors showed them that the third board from the top had a crack running through the middle. When Jake put his full weight on it, the board would break. The boy would fall 20 feet down onto concrete and metal pipes. Commander Zara felt her hearts beating faster as she watched. On her planet, they had special rules about protecting children. If any adult saw a child in danger, they had to help right away. It did not matter if the child belonged to them or not. All children were important to their entire species. Jake reached for the third board and placed it lower on the dirt wall. He could see some interesting pipes down at the bottom now. Maybe there were tools or other cool things left behind by the workers. He stepped down from the second board onto the third one. The cracked board held for just 1 second before it snapped in half with a loud crack. Jake felt himself falling backward into empty air. His arms moved around wildly, trying to grab something, but there was nothing there. The bottom of the pit rushed up toward him, and he could see the sharp edges of concrete blocks waiting below. Commander Zara did not think about the rules that said aliens should not interfere with humans. She only thought about the child who was about to be hurt very badly or maybe killed. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls of her ship and she turned on the gravity beam. Jake felt something strange happen as he fell. Instead of falling fast, he began to fall very slowly, like he was moving through thick water. The air around him seemed to push back against his body. He floated gently down until his feet touched the soft dirt at the bottom of the pit, instead of hitting the hard concrete. The boy looked around in confusion. He was not hurt at all, even though he had fallen a long way. Jake thought maybe he was just very lucky, or maybe the wind had slowed his fall somehow. He did not know that 3 aliens had just saved his life. Up in the invisible ship, Commander Zara and her helpers looked at each other with serious faces. They had just broken the most important rule their people had about not interfering with other planets. But they had also discovered something that shocked them even more. Human children were allowed to put themselves in deadly danger, and no adults were there to stop them. This was something that could never happen on Kepler-7. Commander, Zara began to think that maybe humans did not know how to take care of their own children properly. Dr. Lisa Carter was walking past the construction site when she heard a child calling for help. She ran to the fence and saw Jake standing at the bottom of the pit waving up at her. Lisa was a doctor who worked with children, and she knew right away that this was a dangerous situation. She called down to Jake and told him to stay where he was. Then she called the fire department on her phone to come help get the boy out safely. While they waited, Lisa talked to Jake to make sure he was not hurt. She was amazed that he seemed completely fine after such a big fall. When the firefighters arrived, they put a ladder down into the pit and brought Jake back up to the surface. Lisa checked him over carefully but found only a small scrape on his knee from when he first fell. It seemed like a miracle that he was not badly injured. Jake rode his bicycle home and told his parents about his adventure. His father, Ryan, was a police officer, and he was very upset that his son had gone to such a dangerous place. His mother, Kate, hugged him tight and made him promise to be more careful. That night, Jake went to sleep thinking about his lucky escape. He did not dream about the 3 blue-skinned aliens who were now flying back to their home planet with a report that would change everything for both humans and aliens forever. The turning point came when Jake Morrison made a proposal that surprised everyone, including himself. The 9-year-old boy asked if he could show the alien leaders the difference between good danger and bad danger by demonstrating how human children actually learn to be safe through experience. Fleet Admiral Nex had been watching the situation on Earth with growing concern. The Kepler mission to protect human children was not working as planned, and young Kepler beings were asking difficult questions about their own overprotected lives. When Jake's proposal reached the High Council, Nex decided to accept it as a way to better understand human development. Dr. Lisa Carter was chosen to supervise the demonstration, along with Jake's parents and several child development experts. The event would be broadcast live to both Earth and Kepler-7 so that beings from both worlds could see what happened when a human child was allowed to take controlled risks. Jake stood in his backyard with his red bicycle while millions of humans and aliens watched through cameras and sensors. The alien protection field had been temporarily reduced around his house so that he could ride his bike normally for the first time in months. Before getting on his bike, Jake put on a helmet and knee pads to show the aliens that humans did understand the need for protection from serious injuries. But he explained that the protection should be appropriate to the activity, not so complete that the activity became impossible. Commander Zara watched from her ship as Jake began to ride his bicycle slowly around his yard. She noticed that the human child was careful and paid attention to where he was going, but he was also clearly enjoying the freedom of movement that the bike provided. Then, Jake demonstrated what he called learning from mistakes. He rode toward a small hill in his yard and let his bike go a little faster than was completely safe. When he hit a bump wrong, he fell off and scraped his elbow on the ground. The Kepler observers expected Jake to cry or become afraid after getting hurt, but instead the boy got up, looked at his small injury, and got back on his bike. He told the cameras that the scrape hurt, but it also taught him to be more careful on that part of the hill. This simple demonstration had a powerful effect on alien viewers who had never seen a child recover from injury and become stronger because of it. On Kepler-7, young beings watched in amazement as Jake showed them what resilience looked like. Jake rode his bike for an hour, showing how he could go fast on safe parts of the yard and slow down when he reached areas where he needed to be careful. He fell 2 more times, but each time he got up, learned from what went wrong, and continued riding with more skill than before. Fleet Admiral Nex experienced something that no Kepler being had felt for thousands of years. He felt proud of a child's courage instead of afraid of a child's danger. Watching Jake overcome small challenges and become more confident made Nex remember stories from ancient Kepler history when their own children had been brave explorers. The demonstration ended when Jake rode his bike up to the cameras and explained that he was not hurt badly despite his falls because he had learned to fall safely through practice. He said that children who never fell never learned to protect themselves when falling was unavoidable. Dr. Carter added that human children who were protected from all risk often got hurt worse when they finally encountered danger as adults because they had no experience dealing with challenges. She showed research proving that children who played actively and took appropriate risks were actually safer throughout their lives. The response on Kepler-7 was immediate and dramatic. Young Kepler beings began demanding the right to try activities that involved small risks and the possibility of minor failures. For the first time in centuries, Kepler parents faced children who wanted to test themselves against challenges. Commander Zara made a request that shocked the High Council. She asked for permission to allow young Kepler beings to participate in supervised adventure programs similar to what human children experienced. She argued that her secret experiments had shown remarkable improvements in Kepler children who faced mild challenges. The debate that followed divided Kepler society in ways that had not happened for generations. Older aliens could not understand why anyone would want to give up perfect safety, while younger ones argued that safety without growth was just another form of prison. Jake Morrison received thousands of messages from Kepler children asking him to teach them how to be brave. The alien youth wanted to learn about concepts like climbing, falling, getting back up, and trying again. These ideas were completely new to beings who had been protected from all difficulty since birth. President Helen Davis seized the opportunity to propose a new relationship between Earth and Kepler 7. Instead of the aliens controlling human children, both species could work together to create better safety systems that protected children from serious harm while allowing them to learn and grow through appropriate challenges. The Kepler High Council spent weeks debating this proposal while protests continued on both planets. Human children demanded their freedom back, while Kepler children demanded freedom they had never known existed. Fleet Admiral Nex made the final decision after watching more demonstrations of human child development.
He announced that the Kepler Collective
would withdraw their overprotective measures from Earth, but would remain as partners in developing new safety technologies. The new partnership would focus on preventing truly dangerous situations like serious accidents or natural disasters while allowing children the freedom to experience normal childhood challenges.
Alien technology would be used to eliminate life-threatening
risks, but not the small risks that helped children learn and grow. Dr. Carter was appointed as Earth's first ambassador for child development, with the job of helping alien psychologists understand how human children learned through experience. She worked with Kepler scientists to create safety guidelines that protected children from real harm without preventing healthy development. Jake Morrison received a medal from both the United Nations and the Kepler High Council for his role in bringing the two species to understanding. He was officially recognized as the youngest being ever to influence interplanetary policy through simple courage and wisdom. The boy who had started everything by falling into a construction pit had taught two entire species that the best protection for children was not preventing all harm but teaching them how to handle challenges safely. Schools on both planets began offering adventure programs where children could safely experience controlled risks under expert supervision. Human children gained access to alien safety technology that prevented serious injuries while allowing normal play and exploration. Kepler children experienced physical challenges for the first time in their species' history. They learned to run, jump, climb, and yes, sometimes fall down and get back up. The changes in young Kepler beings amazed their parents as children became more creative, confident, and capable. Jake returned to riding his bicycle, exploring his neighborhood, and climbing trees, but now he did these activities with better safety equipment provided by alien technology. He could take the risks he needed to grow and learn while being protected from dangers that could cause lasting harm. The construction site where everything began was turned into a memorial park dedicated to the friendship between humans and aliens. A statue of Jake on his bicycle reminded visitors that sometimes the best way to keep children safe was to let them learn to keep themselves safe. Both species learned that protection and freedom did not have to be opposites. The galaxy had gained something new, a model for how different kinds of beings could work together to help their children grow up strong, wise, and ready to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. Years later, when Jake became an adult, he would travel to Kepler 7 as an ambassador, helping alien children learn the joy of controlled adventure, while human children learned from Kepler wisdom about avoiding unnecessary dangers. The accident that had frightened aliens into taking over Earth had instead led to a partnership that made both species stronger and their children braver than either could have achieved alone. The universe was a dangerous place, but it was also full of wonders that could only be discovered by beings brave enough to explore it safely.